Everyone, so today I want to talk into the importance of your environment and how that shapes the level of success that you have. It shapes your health, it shapes your whole entire reality. And it's something that I believe is very overlooked or maybe even not understood because it's very familiar to you. Not to mention that none of this is ever taught in the system's schooling education to let you know how you can become a better version of yourself, how you can become rich, successful, healthy, and independent. No, we can't have that. So I want to talk into maybe why some people who are watching this may feel like they're capped at a certain level of income, they're capped at a certain way of living, that there's nothing else available to them. Their parents live this way, their grandparents just live this way, and you've just basically succumbed to the fact like this is just the way it is. And I'm here to tell you it absolutely isn't. So when you think about if you've ever worked with a mentor or a coach or you're very successful in business, one of the things you'll notice with people in business is they think a lot differently than just like the rest of the world. And what I mean by that is they think bigger. They don't think from circumstance. They don't think from their environment and make decisions. If they did that, they would stay limited. They would actually be letting their environment tell them how successful they can be or how non-successful they can be. The information that they're reading from what their parents have done, what their friends are doing, what the news tells you, they would allow that to dictate what they think is possible for themselves. And that was part of the trap because you are able to create anything that you desire. You are manifesting all the time, whether you want to admit that you are or you're not. And you can create anything you want. But the reason why we create, let's say what we have right now, and it seems to be capped, it's not growing any farther because you're living from your circumstances, your environment. If you want to escape the circumstances, if you want to get outside of that so that you can grow beyond that, then you got to go beyond your environment. It's interesting how our minds work, our perceptions work. They're based on what you believe. So if you're in an environment that only lives a certain way, right, which 99% of the world don't live in extremely extraordinary ways of living. They don't live excessively. They don't live abundantly. They don't think big and aspire big. They live in more like mediocrity, like just settling. I don't want to ask for too much because it's bad. I don't even believe I can have what I'm dreaming about. I'm only going to do what everything else that's familiar to me in my environment is doing. Not to mention, there's more proof because my parents left this way, my grandparents lived this way, my friends' parents lived this way. So are you starting to understand what I'm saying about how you program your mind through your environment that limits you? Where you don't even think bigger than your own environment, your circumstances, your bank account, your friends, your body. And I want you to understand you are not just your body. Your mind is multidimensional. You can create whatever you want and bring it into the physical dimension, but you have to allow your mind to expand past your 5 physical senses, the physical domain. When you leave the physical domain, anything is possible. You have infinite potential to choose from and bring it into your reality. But if you don't even know that's a possibility and you think all you have is what you see, then you're kind of screwed, aren't you? You think this is it. This is all my life. This is all I have. Well, I want everyone who wants more in their life to realize there has always been another way. But you're not going to be told this. You need to find out from people like myself. You have to ask people who have things that you have and say, what are you doing differently? How are you thinking differently? And it always comes down to their perception. Are they living from the outside in or are they living from the inside out? Now let's just think about one of the main things that is attacked in children from a very young age. Their imagination, right? When you think about imagination as an adult, you may feel silly. You may think like that's not for adults, that's for children only. And this is a belief system that isn't true, but it's actually stopping you from accelerating and creating and manifesting what you absolutely love. Because your imagination is one of the ways you create. So whether you're consciously aware of it or you're unconsciously, you're using it and you're creating what you see in your reality. So it's interesting that when we are children and we daydream, and we are not able to sit in a seat for 6, 7, 8 hours straight because we want to move our bodies, we want to play, we want to use our imagination, and we're punished. Then they create conditions from external sources like metals in your cereal, sugar, and different artificial flavors that cause children to be hyper that cause children to act out. And then they have the rescue drug to come in, which suppresses even more their imagination, their creativity. So the imagination has always been something that has been attacked. They don't want you using it because this is the portal to creating anything that you desire. And you are meant to only create what the system wants you to create. And that's where you got to break free and say, I'll use my imagination and I'll create what I want. What are some of the belief systems that we get told when we're older? Don't daydream. Don't dream too big because you don't want to be disappointed. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Just live the way other people are living and don't ask for too much. These are just coded in lack. And when you look at nature, nature is overflowing in abundance. If you think about our creator, God, the universe, there's an overflow of infinite energy. Infinite anything is available for us. So for us to accept any beliefs that there's limits in anything that we desire, that is an error in our belief system. But you have to decide that that's an error and think differently. Think from your imagination, from what it is that you desire, and allow that to attract the things into your life that will make it physical for you in your physical reality. That is how everything works. So you are always looking, let's say, at your circumstances. You're looking at your bank account. You're looking at the news. You're looking at what your friends are doing. And they're all in alignment with this mediocrity, this minimal way of living life. So you accept it and you just become familiar with it and just live and exist. But the ones that don't want to live that way, they can't think from their environment any longer. They have to think from a new environment. And that is what your imagination was made for. So I want to share a way that we are trapped in the norm. We are trapped in the familiar and just that believe that that's all there is. And this is all done through the psyche. This is done through mind and not understanding the truth. So what most may not know is that you are constantly thinking pictures related to the thoughts in your mind. And over 80% or 90% of your thoughts are always based on your past. So what does that mean? That means that all the time under the radar, when you're busy doing other things, your mind is constantly focused on thoughts, experiences from your past. So what you focus on must grow and expand. So you're only going to keep creating whatever you have now in your future. That's interesting, don't you think, when it comes to you creating what you want and the lie they tell you that all you have to do is try harder in the physical world, do more physically, break down your bodies, burn yourself out, mental and physical exhaustion, and somehow magically you might get what you want by the time you're 100, if you live that long. Which none of this is true because it goes against the universal laws. So what I want people to understand is your mind is creating through thoughts, through pictures, and feeling about those thoughts and pictures. So if you want to create something new, you don't want to create from the mind in the third dimension, which is your past. You want to create using your imagination in higher dimensions, in the fifth dimension, in the fourth dimension, because there is no limits there. There is no time or space there. And that's where you can pick infinite potential from the quantum field and make that your new future. So the way you create a new future is never thinking from the mind that's here in the third dimension. Now, people can poo-poo on this and say none of this is true, but you can look at the 99% of the world and they're pretty well all living, or just existing, I should say, with mediocre results in their life. They may not even have meaning or purpose. They're struggling to get by. Some of them aspire for more. They're trying harder in the physical world because they're told that's the only world that's available to you. And that's the only way that you can achieve this big dream of yours is from thinking from the mind that's full of lack. That doesn't even make sense. And everything is energetics. Everything has got universal laws connected to it. So if you are thinking from lack, your mind is always thinking 80% of the day from your past, which is filled with lack and disappointments and all these fears the system gives you. How the hell are you supposed to start creating bigger in your circumstances and quantum leaps in your income and your business success when you're trying to do it in the most limiting dimension you're in, which is the third dimension. Now, you're a spiritual being, you have a soul, and you have a physical body to navigate the third dimension in time and space. That's pretty simple, quick. But here's the thing. The soul is something that they've been trying to eliminate from your mind. You don't know where it is. You think it's somewhere outside of yourself. You hear certain people like Noah Harari in the WF who don't even want you to think or even say there is a soul anymore. It's somehow gone, just disappeared. Yet the soul is within yourself, and it's the bridge. It's the bridge between the spirituality, the spiritual world, and you in the physical world, the physical reality. But to not pay attention to it, to not know it, is how you stay struggling in only the physical realm. But when you learn that you are multidimensional and that your mind, your consciousness is able to time travel, is able to move forward and backwards in time because there is no time or space, there's only the now, then you will realize that you can take back your power. You get to create the world that you truly want to experience instead of being a victim of the circumstances the world is creating for you. At the end of the day, if you didn't know this, you are creators. And these entities know that you create. This is why they've harnessed everything they can to control your mind into one direction so that you do not create anything outside of the system's narrative. So this is why if you study anyone who's extremely successful, if you've been mentored or coached by anyone, these people teach about these principles and they share, whether they understand or not, that you have to think bigger than your environment if you want your environment to change. So if you get anything from these reels today is to think, if there's anything you want to change in your life, even your health, okay, it doesn't matter what you want to change in your circumstances and your conditions. If you want them to change, you cannot have your mind locked into this third dimension, the consciousness looking at what you've created already, and think that you're going to be able to expand past it. That's the limitation. This is why putting yourself in environments with people who think bigger than you, who have more than you, is the perfect way for you to start believing in things that you cannot see, that you never thought you could have. But if other people have it, that means it's something you can have too. But if you're living in a closed system where most of the people don't have much, they're living or just existing in this system, you're going to think along the same lines and you won't step out of it. So this is what I wanted you guys to realize. You're limited by your environment and your perception of it. When you expand your environment, when you take your mind and your perception and your consciousness off your environment, and you tap into the fourth and fifth dimension where you can create anything you want, you're now about to create a new environment in the third dimension. So if I haven't said this enough in the last little while, you do not change anything in the third dimension of form. Matter cannot change matter. The only way that we have ever created anything in form that is here in our physical world always came from a place with no form. It's invisible. It's the non-physical. And that is where we create what we want. That information has been left out of everything you've learned. You are only trying to pull information and try to fix things in one environment. And that environment is coded in lack and scarcity and fear. So you have a great chance of creating a timeline, creating a reality that is coded in lack, stress, fear, unworthiness, when you are way more than that. So the moment you allow and accept these new ideas and you start to think from a different environment than this third dimension, then your whole entire world, your life, your bank account, your health, it all changes. And you are the one who creates it. So take your power back, change your thinking about what you used to believe was true, and entertain anything that will bring more love, more value, more abundance, more happiness, more peace to you. Why not try it?